This is the mysterious death of a woman found on I-95 on the side of the road. If you want to know more about this case, please continue watching.
You are watching Roll a Mile in My Shoes TV.
More than a decade later, they're hoping someone can provide new information on the murder of a 27-year-old woman. Here's Katie Jeffries with tonight's Unsolved.
There are more questions than answers when it comes to the death of Melissa McCarthy, which is why investigators will tell you it remains unsolved. But what is certain is that her life was ended by a gunshot and her body callously dumped along the side of I-95. It was the afternoon of November 30th, 2011. A truck driver stopped on the side of the I-95 ramp at exit 14 to use the bathroom. Walking into the woodline, he made a terrible discovery. A woman's body up against a fence, dead from a single gunshot to the head. Investigators say her fingerprints and a tattoo would identify her as 27-year-old Melissa McCarthy, who would also go by the name Melissa McCarthy Comiskey, but she was not from the area. Investigator Nathan Daniel with the Camden County Sheriff's Office says she had been working as a prostitute in Pompano Beach.
People interviewed out there stated that they saw her getting into a red and white semi-truck on the night that she disappeared.
Though investigators in 2011 leaned toward this theory that she was killed by a truck driver, investigator Daniel has doubts about that story, especially since the information came from a man who was her pimp at the time. And the tire tracks at the scene off I-95 are not from a semi.
In the report, it states that it looked like somebody sped off real quick.
He believes one of the biggest clues in the case comes from Melissa's phone records. A 904 number connected to a St. Mary's resident had been calling Melissa's phone before her death.
When they did a satellite tracking on the towers, they did find out that that individual that lives in St. Mary's was in the Pompano area, 6.7 miles away from where Melissa McCarthy was working.
He says deputies in 2011 spoke to that person, a woman who said she and Melissa were dating the same man, and that man was the one making calls from her phone to Melissa. Investigator Daniel says he's not sure why there wasn't more investigation of this lead in 2011. But after the couple was interviewed, they moved from the Georgia area, something he finds suspicious. And he does say as he re-examines this case, that couple are persons of interest. But he could use the public's help, especially if they know anything about Melissa's death that wasn't reported to investigators a decade ago.
There's so many missing details in this case. What I'm like to do is re-interview everybody that was interviewed.
And finally, put the pieces together to close this cold case. Filling in the missing details is so important in this case, which is why we do these stories. If you know anything, please call the Camden County Sheriff's Office. Katie Jeffries, First Coast News, on your side.
As you heard in the previous news clip, this case began on November 30th, 2011, when a truck driver stopped on the I-95 ramp at exit 14 to use the bathroom. Walking into the woods, he made a gruesome discovery. There was a body of a woman who had one single gunshot wound to her head. Her tattoo, which was also shown in the previous video clip, identified her as Melissa McCarthy, although sometimes she went by a different last name, which was also mentioned in the previous video clip. Now, if anyone knows anything about how victims are found sometimes, depending on the crime scenes and where they're found, it can tell a lot about who their killers are or were. Now, at the time of her being found, it is suggested that her killer might have been a truck driver. But the agent, who was investigating the case, said that he does not think that this is who killed Melissa. He thinks that it probably is, someone else who's not a truck driver. And at the time, they thought that the tire tracks that were found near her body on the road were from a semi, but then they found out that those were not tire tracks from a semi truck. They were tires from what seemed to be a regular vehicle. Now, when police also did a cell phone ping or looked at Melissa's call records to see who the last person she was talking to, it showed a woman who said that her and Melissa were dating the same man. Now, many people know that when it is something like that, of love triangle, which Melissa seemed to be involved in. I don't know if this was true or not, but just going by what the woman said, this could have been a possibility. But a man who was her pimp at the time also said that she possibly was killed by a truck driver. But suspiciously and oddly enough, after the woman and the man that were calling Melissa's phone were interviewed, they shortly after disappeared. Now, if you ask me, this makes them pretty likely suspects, because why would you move right after you are investigated by police? It kind of seems like to me you're on the run without actually being 100% named as a suspect. And I think they need to, if they haven't already, track these individuals down and also see what else they can find out about these two and their involvement in Melissa's death. Because if not both of them, one of them killed Melissa and the other is covering for, the partner, whichever one that may be, the woman or the man. But it seems that the man was 6 miles or so away from where Melissa's body was found. Now, this is a little crazy, because if that is the case, what was he doing 6 miles away from her body, where her body was found on the day that she was found? And and when did he get into, I guess, town? If he did not already live in the area, when did he get there? And why was he there? Was he there to see her? Or was he there to, conduct some type of business for work? Or what was the reason he was there? That also needs to be looked at as well, if they have not already. And figure out, why this man was in that area if he didn't live there already. And see, was he using Melissa for her quote unquote services as a street worker, or some people might refer to her as a sex worker. Some people might call her a prostitute, but for the purpose of this story, we're just gonna say a worker. I would like to know, was he using her for her services? And if so, how many times had he used her? Did they actually have a relationship, or was it just a business type deal? Like, what was it? were him and his girlfriend or wife or whatever she is using Melissa for her services, or was he only the one doing that, and did the woman get jealous? But if you guys like this video and have more information, please don't forget to let me know down in the comments and let me know if I missed anything. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next one.